Allison from Learning at the Primary Pond. I'm a literacy specialist, and in this video, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different from usual. I'm actually going to be answering some teachers' questions related to the science of reading. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, go ahead and do that now, and then also hit the little bell so that you don't miss out on any of the videos that I post about teaching literacy. Okay, so where did these questions come from? Well, they came from educators inside my Reading Intervention Collaborative. That is a membership that I have that teaches teachers how to become experts at delivering reading intervention, helping students that are struggling, and there's also tons of printables to help with reading intervention. I'll include a link to the RIC in the caption below, but that's where these questions came from. And inside the RIC, we have a community forum. We also have Zoom calls, but inside the community forum, teachers can ask questions at any time, 24/7, and get answers from me, as well as from other Reading Intervention Collaborative members. And it's so nice to have that community because when you're at a school, you know your bubble of that school. But schools all have different ways of doing things, and there might be things that you can learn from teachers at other schools or just from getting a different perspective. So it's so nice to have that community where we can all share knowledge and we can all learn from each other. So that's where these questions came from. Okay, so let me read question number 1 to you. Question number 1 says, is this statement true or false? Do not use a picture to teach a new word to a student. I love this question because this is one nuance that's related to the science of reading that can be confusing, especially if you're a little bit newer to the science of reading. So what this educator was asking is, is it okay to use a picture when we're teaching a child a new word? And so the way that I responded was, well, it depends what you're teaching exactly, right? If you're teaching a child to decode a word, then we don't want to use a picture because we want them to actually use the letters and the sounds, right? So we don't want that picture because that's a crutch, and that picture will encourage them to start guessing. Now, does this mean that we always use books without pictures? No, it's just that if you want them to decode the word sun, you shouldn't also have a picture of a sun above it because of course then they're going to know that the word is sun. However, if you are teaching a child a vocabulary word that is new to them and you're not worried about them decoding it, then yes, by all means use a picture. Using pictures when you introduce new vocabulary words is a really great tool, a really great strategy to help kids remember the word. So to that question, should I use a picture when teaching a child a new word? It depends if you're getting them to decode, in which case no, and it depends if you're getting them to try to learn the word as a vocabulary word, in which case my answer is yes, that's a great idea. Okay, let me read question number 2 to you. Question number 2 says, is it necessary to go through all the phoneme manipulation when students can blend and read CVC words? They know letter names, letter sounds, can tap out the sounds, blend them together to read words like cat, hot, get. So at this point, should I come back and teach them such skills as phoneme segmenting or substitution? Another really great question. So a little bit of background knowledge. Phoneme manipulation is getting kids to add a phoneme to a word. Like for example, they start with go and they add t and they get goat. So that's an example of phoneme addition, which is a type of phoneme manipulation. There's also phoneme deletion. That would be the opposite, right? That you start with goat, take away t, and you get go. And then there's phoneme substitution where you would switch out a phoneme. So you might start with goat and then say instead of g, and they get moat, right? So those are all types of phoneme manipulation. And of course, the ultimate goal of teaching phonemic awareness is getting kids to read. And so what this teacher is saying is we're good with CVC words, they can blend and segment. So do I need to work on those harder skills? Because phoneme manipulation is harder than blending and segmenting. So here's what I said. I said, first of all, I think the research on phonemic awareness, as it is in many areas of the science of reading, is still unfolding. However, there is some evidence that shows that working on those phoneme manipulation tasks like adding, deleting, substituting actually does help kids at even beyond getting to read like CVC words. It, creates more awareness of phonemes and just more ease of working with phonemes and then eventually matching them to letters. Now, speaking of matching to letters, phonemic awareness activities are really effective when you pair them with letters. So she could actually take, magnetic letters for the word goat And I guess that one's a little bit tricky, but you could, for mote, if you wanted to switch the G to the M, she could show them how she's taking the G and switching it with the M to make mote, right? So you can include letters there. So in a nutshell, the research is still unfolding. There is some evidence, though, that those higher level phoneme manipulation tasks can be helpful as kids advance in their reading, especially for kids that are struggling with reading and may have a phonological awareness deficit, or something going on that makes that phonological processing difficult for them. These tasks can be helpful. And then, of course, blending and segmenting are some of the most important skills. But at this point, with the research that I've seen, it's not going to hurt to spend just a little bit of time. It does not need to be hours and hours every day. Just a couple of minutes working on those more advanced phoneme manipulation tasks, because that can help facilitate the reading and spelling process as they grow in their knowledge. Okay, so here's the third question. Just curious if anyone has any tips on having kids follow along with a text that is being read to them. Many times my students are looking anywhere but the printed page. I have tried to use pointing fingers. I purchased finger flashlights. I have displayed the print on a screen and moved my finger along. I just don't feel like their attention to the task is there. Does anyone have any techniques that work for them that I could try? And I love that this member was asking everyone, right? Because again, inside the Reading Intervention Collaborative, we have many members who are able to contribute their knowledge, and the more brains, the better, right? I'm curious too, in the chat, would you let me know if you have someone that you can turn to for teaching advice? I know some teachers do, some teachers don't. Sometimes if it's in a smaller school, then it can be harder to find someone who's like in your exact position or, has knowledge about what you're asking about. So just let me know in the comments if you do have somebody that you can turn to for advice and tips like this. Okay, so back to her question. I'm gonna read what another member suggested. It was very similar to what I would suggest. So this member said, I asked the class to follow along so that they can catch the word when I stop. Essentially, they say the next word in the text when she stops. If they miss the first one, the pressure of the rest of the class saying the word helps most of the kids follow along so that they too can guess which word I'll drop next. And that's exactly what I do too, right? I do this throughout my teaching, like throughout the day. I might be reading or whatever, and if I'm wanting them to follow along, I'll pause and I'll just have them fill in a word, and that just kind of like keeps their attention, right? I'll even do this when I'm reading aloud and they can't see the text. It'll just be like, maybe if there's something, like a word that they should be able to figure out just from context. Because again, they're not decoding here during a read aloud. She's talking about like kids should have their eyes on their text. So slightly different scenario, but I'm just saying you can transfer this to other scenarios like reading aloud to them. And when I'm reading aloud, if there is something that I know that they can like fill in the blank, I will pause and do this too. So I love that member suggestion. Love this question. Just stopping and having them fill in the word can encourage kids to pay attention and follow along. Okay, I hope you enjoyed hearing these wonderful questions. If you are interested in having a community that you can go to and ask questions and just learn from others' questions too, you should definitely check out the Reading Intervention Collaborative. Again, that's my membership where we really focus on learning how to be the best intervention teacher, whether you are a reading specialist, an intervention teacher, or a classroom teacher wanting to support your struggling readers. We focus on helping you become the best teacher that you can be so your struggling readers can make twice fast progress, so twice the progress they would normally make using the strategies in the RIC and the printables. Okay, I'll include the link for that in the caption. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video.